Hey, welcome to Woodworking with Wes, and you can also find us on woodworkingwithwes.com. Today we're going to make a very simple finger joint or box joint jig. It's a very cool corner that is often used for decorative purposes, but it's also a very strong corner, and it is really highlighted when you use contrasting colors of wood like we have right here. Let's get started. We'll start by making the platform for our finger joint jig. These will be our runners. These two pieces will be our backstop. This will be our platform. Our runners need to be smooth in our miter slots, and they are. And I'm going to use these little nickels as spacers, and I'll show you how I do that. We put two spacers in each slot and the runner on top of it. I don't want my runner to be all the way to the bottom of our miter slot. So by putting the little spacer there, I'm able to make our runner a little shy of the bottom. That makes it run smoother. And it allows me to put our platform together, and I'll show you how I do that. So now we got our two runners. We put those in there. I move this up to where I want my platform to be. I want the runners to be equally spaced, and that's about equal. I want it to be same top to bottom. And then I just take my 3/4 inch small crown staple. This is 5/8 pre-finished Baltic birch that I'm using for my platform. I'll put a staple front and back on each of our runners. Okay, that runs pretty smooth. We'll pull those out. We'll take our spacer nickels out. We'll spend those someplace else some other time. All right, the next thing we'll do is to start with the backstop. Now, I have taken a piece of pre-finished and cut a little edge along it, and we're going to be nailing that on the back of our platform piece, again using our 3/4 inch small crown staple. Now I cut a little notch before I got started. I cut a little notch there so that I can make sure that I don't put any staples where our saw blade would run. That allows me just an indicator to stay off to the side of that. Okay. Now let's put our runner back in here, make sure we run smooth. Okay, just like we want. Perfect. This is the other portion of our backstop. I want it to hang over on both ends. This is going to give us a place to clamp on our dado, our finger joint jig part. We're just going to go ahead and put some staples front and back. Hold this piece on secure. I'm going to crank my blade up here just a little bit. I'm going to make a preliminary cut with my saw blade and check for square. It's very, very important to make sure that your box joint jig is square to your blade, because that's going to make a big impact upon your box joints. That's perfect. That's right where we want to be. I check it from both sides. We're great, just like we want to be. Let's make sure our cut. All right. We're square to the front of our jig, and we're square to the back of our jig. Next, we are going to assemble our stacked dado head to 3/8 of an inch. And we're going to set the height of our dado to the thickness of the wood that we're going to be using for the sides of our box. With our stacked dado heads set, we're now getting ready to make the pin section of our box joint jig. We're going to do that by first cutting a slot in our backstop. This is our backstop. After we cut our slot, we attached a pin that was the width of our slot and hung out just a little bit. We've glued it and put one staple in there to hold it so that it creates a pin like this. And then we're going to use an extension of that little pin that we made to space our pin setting. And what we'll do is line that up to our dado stack and put our newly set pin right against it. And then clamp our backstop to our sled. Now, I went ahead and I put 2 holes in the back of our sled so that I can screw with 5/8 screws into the back side of our pin backstop. We can use these holes to attach any pin size that we want. If we want to make a larger finger joint, all we have to do is make a new backstop. Now, there are many jigs that I have noticed that have different kinds of multiple adjustable pin sizes. They're a little more complicated, and quite honestly, for ease of getting started doing box joints, this is the way to go. Do one at a time, and if you needed to make a different one next time, you have your backstop and your sled all made. All you got to do is make a new pin stop. All right, let's run a little practice piece. Now, I always make an extra piece of material that is the thickness and the width of the board that I want to make my box out of for a practice piece. I shove it over tight against my pin. Make my initial cut. And you can see by just lifting your board over the top of the pin, it spaces each one of your cuts exactly correct. With our box joint jig complete, we're ready to begin cutting the fingers on our walnut sides. We'll start with our side tight up against our pin, and as we make each successive cut, lift and put over the top of the pin, ready for our next cut, one after another until we've completed the whole side. We're now getting ready to cut our finger joints on the ends of our side. This is the sides, this is the ends. Here's our top, and we're going to turn our piece around and face the top, put it over our pin, and then put our side up against it. We're going to mark it top also. And we're going to do that just like that and make our first initial cut. And then repeat our cuts just like we did for our sides, going over the top of our pin each time. Okay, with our fingers all cut, our box joint all cut, let's see how we fit together. Oh, look at that. Doesn't that look cool? Using contrasting colors really focuses on what those finger joints look like when they go together. This is also a very, very strong corner joint when you put glue on it like that, and it's very decorative. This is a wonderful thing to learn right away, and this is an easy jig to use, and we're going to see you next time on Woodworking with Wes.